Recording, recording in progress. Done. Okay, so I'll give the intro again.
Sure.
Good morning, Sanjay ji. How are you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon from India. Doing very well. Glad to be back on another series with you, Chandan.
The next episode. We are on our episode number 5. Yes?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I'll give a quick introduction about Sanjay ji. Sanjay ji is a career executive and a leader and a business analyst based in Mumbai. He has had several leadership positions in many joint ventures. He has an amazing experience and a huge depth of knowledge, which I tapped into
Thank you.
over X a few months ago. I am Chandan Ganvani. I am an entrepreneur and an investor based in Warsaw, Poland. We love to talk about the progress both India and Europe is making. But let's start with the great news out of India, which is, in fact, the infrastructure story.
Sure, all us. Thanks for that generous introduction. I think we discussed a couple of episodes back also, and in fact, in last episode also, that India is having a significant world's fastest growing GDP at 7.7 for the last full year, 7.8% for the Q4. And I think the key aspect is uh, we are seeing that from an output perspective. But if we step back and we look at some of the big numbers, I think it is the input, the infrastructure, which is really becoming the driver. And just I think a couple of days back, I wrote there was a Nikkei article that India has doubled its central investment capex in last 5 years. So gone for just under from 60 billion dollars in 2020 to to last year 100, close to 115, and this year the plan is 128 billion dollars, so more than 2x. And when you put in that kind of investments, I think that's where we see the manufacturing coming in. We see the highways getting rolled out and the logistics costs come down. We see the positive flywheel start taking place. We see the semiconductor plants all coming in. So that it's also almost putting the investment, it's actually leading to GDP value and GDP growth that gives confidence to the private investors, both domestic and international. They put in their private capex, and I think the flywheel takes off. So that's a great point to start the discussion.
I think that's a very important thing because that flywheel, for the common man, that just means one thing. It means jobs, 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 and more jobs. And that's where you actually see the engine of that flywheel running. And it's amazing to talk about the big numbers. It's amazing to talk about the investments from the private sector, from the public sector. But then all of that is just creating more and more jobs. And it's that huge surge that we're seeing in the Indian economy. So how can the rest of the world take advantage of this? How can the rest of the world see this opportunity, especially if you look at European entrepreneurs? What can we tell our brothers here in Europe to look at the fundamentals in India and how to capitalize on it?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think how the international investors have to really look at it is ultimately all investors are looking for how quickly they can go live and how can their business economics be best. So they have to look at it at that this infrastructure investment which is being done actually is creating the foundational platform. So whether it is you should have a better highways, you should have railways, which is almost fully electrified, and you'll have dedicated freight corridor. You will actually have significant port capacity, which is coming in even in a mega city like
Mumbai.
Mumbai.
Yeah.
We again read almost 22,000 crore per plus of investment,
Wow.
new investment is being done to for the larger Mumbai metropolitan region to de-bottleneck. So if all of that happens, then when and already the other fundamentals of India having great domestic demand, etc. are there. So anyone who wants to leverage it, they it is actually helping them in their ease of doing operations. So you have a country level ease of doing business. You have a fiscal incentive, like for example, semiconductor or PLIs, both at a central level and at a state level. And then finally, the company wants to say, I only want to do what is core to me and I want to outsource it. And I think that's where if this acts as a enabler. So you come in, you actually are able to, your time to market reduces, your access to burgeoning consumer demand increases. So it's a great win-win which we can see. And I think that is where possibly the flow we are seeing coming in. And the good,
And
the uh, other important aspect is this is not happening only at a central government level, whether it is road, railway, infrastructure. We are actually seeing a lot of that benefit actually flowing in into states because finally, after choosing the country, the clients have to choose a specific location. And we have seen some great momentum both in existing states and some of the new challenges which are coming in.
so at so we talked about Mumbai, but what about out other areas? Like perhaps we could talk about out West Bengal. You had mentioned to me some great developments over there as well.
Sure, absolutely. And I think if we can maybe pick up two very different examples of West Bengal with the change in the central government and building on the earlier legacy. So at one time, Calcutta was in fact the original capital for British India, right? And then over a period of
Mm,
time, whatever deindustrialization happened, the growth happened. But the fact that there are certain key ingredients we have to find out, extract what were the positives, and use that as a core nucleus to build a new wave. And I think
right.
a couple of great new announcements came in. One is, I think, over a 19,000 crore plan, which is there to revamp the ports as well as the maritime logistics and start positioning the West Bengal as India's uh, maritime gateway from eastern side. And that considering it has a proximity from both Southeast Asia as well as Asia. It can be a great gateway away from the Western India and Southern India, which are already developed. So I think that's a great investment which is coming in. I think both the central government and the state government has also worked on inviting existing players who are anyway the national players, whether it is Reliance, Amazon, Microsoft, to use this as an opportunity to also create their hubs and increase the investment, whether for data center or GCCs and others in East. And it also ties in with most of the companies' overall diversification strategy. Because from a disaster recovery and business continuity protocol, almost all companies and their end clients ask for certain geographical and a seismic diversification. So it
Right.
also fits in into, you don't have to, if you are already present in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Mumbai or Pune, you don't, many of the companies take their next diversification and take it to Philippines or Hong Kong. Now you don't need to take it. You have it a physically different geography, but still in India. So that's I think that's a great way to look at it.
And given the geographic size of India, this is one of India's great eight opportunities because, like you said, you can diversify your risk immediately. This also acts as a great gateway for tourism in India because you
Absolutely.
you can come to India and you can see so much. It is, you know. uh, we had EU representatives come to India recently, and they talked about the strength in diversity. I think this is one of the things that uh, is common both in Europe and in India. Totally diverse cultures, totally diverse cuisines, great places to see in different geographical regions. So, can you talk to us a little bit about the tourism factor? I recently shared on X. I don't know if people noticed or not, but I shared on X how European travelers are coming to India and they are seeing the five-star services in the buses, in the trains.
Yeah, right
So
from Zing bus to Vande Bharat to the works. Yeah, and I
yeah.
think it's a great publicity and a visibility point for India tourism, because obviously we need as many dollars, and as well as tourism is a great driver for both employment as well as GDP generation. And I think the fact that this is happening. In fact, again, it builds up. And if I take uh, just like how West Bengal can evolve, we are talking about tourism in East as well as Northeast. I think if we just pick up just last weekend, I had written about how religious tourism is actually becoming one of the biggest drivers for both domestic and international traffic to come in. And a lot of that is happening because close to about 18,000 crore worth of capex in just highways, roads, etc. has been invested, and we're not stopping. And then on top of it, the another close to $2 billion worth of investment is coming in the Udan or the regional airports.
Right.
And whether that's worked, just to give us some sense, like just in Uttar Pradesh, just this Ayodhya, Kashi, and combining with the Madhya Pradesh, Mahakal. This that is, I see, that is a new triangle away from the classic touristy Delhi, Jaipur, Agra. So this is
Absolutely right. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the new triangle. In fact, just Ayodhya itself saw over, I think, over 110 million visitors coming in the first few months,
And a
and
lot
that's
of
like a
yeah,
yeah,
a lot of
that's like a
Europeans.
yeah, huge scale. And so when the investment goes in, when we see the corridor built in, when we see the faster road connectivity, it gives efficiency. The hotels, good quality hotels are there. You are actually creating an online service so people can book their uh, visits as well as their puja, etc. on time. And that is what is, it's a natural flow. And then actually the second aspect is when people come in, they see and they have a positive feedback, and they are pleasantly surprised. They go back, and that's another way for the flywheel to pick up. As you
Top,
talked of, so many people from EU and Poland, and even some are still visiting, and they
right?
are actually genuinely surprised, because I don't think it's a paid campaign, right? They're just
No.
genuinely surprised to see uh, this is what is a classic. We call it as a new India.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, and it's this new mindset because if you like the corridor that you talked about around Ayodhya, we have International Yoga Day coming up. And so,
Right.
and you won't believe how many friends of mine are actually getting their yoga teacher training in India,
Absolutely.
in that area in and around Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Just for our viewers, this is we're talking about the north of India, but it's still towards the center.
North and central.
Yeah, central regions of India, and they're coming in from Europe to get their yoga teacher training, to enjoy spirituality, to take a break from their work from home culture. And you have also Indians then coming into Europe, and that same flywheel, like you said, that same flywheel of positivity continues to develop. And I think that's a great segue into our next topic where we are looking at the commitment and from both sides. Can you give us some brief idea because there is so much to talk about when it comes to this Indian
Yes.
European commitment.
Yeah, I think as we said, I think while the I how I see it is, and I'm sure you and some of the other stakeholders may also be seeing it. The ratification of the deal will happen when it will happen. I think that's just a process, and everyone is pushing for the uh, the end of the year as soon as practically possible. But I think the
Right.
fundamental mindset what we are seeing is, and that's a great positive, is I think at a government to government level, at a government to corporate level, and then at least at a business level, almost
Right.
everyone is operating as if things are already done.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you just pick
Absolutely
up,
right.
yeah, so you just pick up a couple of examples. Just earlier this week, the French envoy in India talked of saying the fact that Rafael letter has been issued and things will follow, but they are very clear it will be a make in India deal. So in their
Correct.
mind, yeah, you have to work out the details of the degree of indigenization and how it will operate. But the fundamental strategic direction is said that if out of 114, if 94 are will be made in India, then how you will do it. So I think that was a great point. And a second point I'll just add and would love to see your perspective is I think all of them have been making a very critical point that India is actually the one of the most important countries to partner with G7.
Right.
So, with the latest G7 summit coming up, uh, and India and PM Modi has been a constant special invitee, but they are ensuring that the invitation is across all tracks, all sessions. And
Right.
that goes on to show the kind of engagement and the kind of strategic relationship and importance which we are seeing from both perspective. I think every week we are seeing not just the trade delegation, but the topmost ministers engaged. We had Mr. Jaishankar there last
All
week.
right.
PM Modi just flew out of India. He's visiting France and Slovakia. In fact, Slovakia for the first time. With so much
Right.
buzz happening, would love to know how people based in EU and Poland are seeing this engagement. Because it's always
Hey,
good to see
the other
the other
side.
perspective.
Right. You're absolutely right because what you're seeing is engagement at all levels of society and engagement at all levels of trade. Whether you're looking at government to government, business to business, investor to investor, startup to startup collaborating. One thing I'd love to focus about, we all know about the news of the foreign ministers meeting in Helsinki. We know about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Slovakia and then to France. Uh, and then, of course, the G7 is extremely big news. But one thing that I'd like to focus on is you're seeing startups here in Warsaw combine forces with startups in Bangalore.
Wow.
You're seeing startups in Bangalore find synergies with startups in France, in Germany, whether it comes to robotics, whether it comes to just e-commerce, when it comes to software, when it comes to manufacturing. So there we talked about this in our second and third episode as well, that this synergy which is being created, yes, it is being led, definitely being led by prime ministerial visits and governmental visits, and it's great to see the European Union so active in this. But we can clearly see that startups, students, yeah, we see Sanskrit being taught at university levels and
Wow.
high school level in Europe. And we also see that the people to people interaction is now at a very, uh, I would say it's, yes, it is at a positive level, but there is a different level of understanding. The level of understanding is that how do we both use this opportunity to create more abundance, to create more jobs, to better and improve our lives. I talked about the International Yoga Day. It's been growing slowly and slowly in momentum, but now you will see embassies all across Europe, Indian embassies all across Europe are
Yes,
promoting International Yoga Day. But people are not waiting for the embassy events. We
yeah,
had a recent
they're doing on their own.
they're doing their events by themselves, because there's only a limited capacity that the embassies can handle. But you have yoga teachers who are doing all right. It's International Yoga Day. There's no special invitation required to celebrate this yoga and International Yoga Day, and we can do it everywhere. So it's this thing that, yes, the G7 is critical. I understand that the foreign minister's visit is critical, and I get that. But it's this people to people at a base level, not only looking at each other very positively, but looking at each other as partners. And for me,
It's a natural connect how you do the business, because ultimately all business is done by people to people, right?
yeah,
You may be representative of a company, you may be an entrepreneur, but you will only do if you feel a certain connect and a certain value.
yeah, and this is exactly what happens. You have a people to people connect. You're both working for multinational companies, and you contact each other one fine day and you say, how can I use India as a global hub? How can I use Europe to expand my market? And that's how business actually works, based on trust. Yeah. Which brings us to our next amazing point of, like we talked about in our last episode, of business based on trust. And we saw a lot of trust being put in India, not only from Europe but from the Far East and Japan as well.
Absolutely. So I think, as you said, that we talked on the earlier point that once we do a hard work of the infrastructure and the foundation of the platform to be built in, then the network effect starts. Then everyone wants to leverage it. And I think even if you just look at, there were so many announcements just in the last 1 week. But even if you look at some of the big trends, you had Tore from Japan, which is already here, looking at their expansion in Sri City, Andhra, to leverage the automotive growth which is happening. We saw so many auto MNCs announcing a significant expansion plan, and the automotive MNCs want to bring in the best in class new products, not the existing products, because they know India is a tough competitive market. So right from a 20,000 crore investment announcement by Toyota uh, to all the other guys, the MG, Skoda, Renault, Nissan. In fact, I'd written about it. They are calling India as their new global hub. We saw Halion, which is a erstwhile GSK from UK, to actually announce the first 2,000 crore investment for a manufacturing plant, and they want to use this is their first plant, I think, in whole of South Asia. They want to use this as a hub for Asian exports. We saw, even you talked of Japan, the third biggest thing was, I think, the Chubu energy guys have actually invested close to about 150 million at a $1.2 billion investment in one of the green energy platforms. I think
Right.
I think all of this, it really flows back to fundamentally why. I think, yeah, the foundation of the confidence is there, and now you simply look at two pillars. You have a great domestic demand, which is represented by the GDP growth, which is happening, and the consumer confidence, and inflation, despite so much of volatility, still relatively under control. And then everyone wants to diversify, whether from China or anywhere else, to ensure that your supply chain continuity and resilience is there. And that's where the second thing is, use India as an exports hub. So we see both of these engines working, and it's a great place to be right in midst of it and seeing all of this firing away right away.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that we love to talk about risk diversification. We love to talk about energy diversification and mineral and rare earth diversification. But it's great to see that it's actually occurring. That
Yes,
these are no longer concepts that are being discussed at a university level or at a government level, but these are concepts which are being implemented across the board. And it's good to see that, like we talked about last time, it's good to see that the same partners which are putting their trust in India are also the same partners that are putting their trust in Europe. There's a
yes.
there's a great push by LG in Poland. There's a great push by Toyota across Europe. So it's good to see that this synergy is occurring in almost like we love to talk about IMEC plus almost. Yeah, it's almost was from the Far East into India and into Europe and it can
Uh, we
it
can
can
call
lead
it the new Silk Route.
the new
Uh,
Silk Route, our new Silk Route, correct.
yeah.
And it's occurring in not only in heavy industry manufacturing, but also in high tech. Yeah,
Absolutely. So some great developments, like we talked of just, I think in one of the past episodes, that there were nine space tech companies which went and actually tied up with Italian companies in at the conference in Venice. But now, just at the France summit, 120 companies of chosen in space tech and deep tech will be present, and there's a Bharat Innovates platform, which is a great visibility to the complete EU and even the non-EU, the greater
correct,
set of folks which will be coming in. So,
correct,
so I think that's a great move, and how I see it is at this stage, and that's where I think EU is also finally started looking at it. Is I think there are two wheels, and both of them have to be managed. One is you look at the best-in-class innovation, and you
right,
ensure that the demand side create uh, new tech, create new innovation to work on
right,
it. And then on the supply side, you ensure that the resources are tied up, because as you talked of that, diversification is a very important aspect.
right,
So if you pick up from a demand side, we saw again some synergies. We talked of even some few things which resonate with Poland and EU. We saw Zen Technology launching their anti-drone platform,
correct, correct,
very similar to the ambitious plans of Poland.
correct,
And
correct,
EU also has a focus both on swarm drones as well as anti-swarm to offense and defense, both of it. Even from a space tech perspective, I think uh, just we are seeing that 1 trillion rupee research and development initiative fund of RDI fund is really taking off. And
right,
just last week was a good stock taking. And we saw that out of almost 2,200 crores of first investment, more than one third, almost 40% or 800 plus crores was invested in a set of 22 cohort of 22, mostly playing in space tech and deep tech. So it goes back to your point that it's great to say we should do space tech, deep tech, high tech, but this is actually happening. So that's a great way to see. And in fact, a relatively small event, but I think it's a big milestone, is Zoho announced India's first
yes,
indigenous
absolutely.
made server. I think it's
Yeah.
only poetic they made it as Nathula. So one of the final frontiers to guard tech and sovereign
Yes,
dominance.
yeah, I think it was fantastic news, and like you said, it is a small but significant step. It's taken in a lot of hard work to get to that stage where you get the understanding of where in the hardware space should we be positioned? Assembling laptops, assembling phones, creating an ecosystem where components of phones are made in India. That was all great, but it is this last deep understanding that data needs to be secured inside our borders. It is stressed in Europe as well, that the data needs to be secured in our borders, that these servers which we need to produce, which we need to 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 understand, and exactly how to implement and this data protection, and understand how to use this data for further research and progress. So it was a small but very significant step, like you said.
Yes. And I think the fantastic thing was, out of all the places, they chose Nagpur, which has virtually no competency of the ecosystem, but they just they picked up a bunch of young guys, enthusiastic guys. They put and they said, "Do what it takes." And I think at the end of 5 years, uh, we have an indigenous server from ground up,
Mm.
and I think in fact, just today morning, it becomes even more salient if you see what Anthropic has decided to do. Suddenly,
Right.
they decided to turn the tap off. Uh, Maybe it's a not so good fable, no pun intended, but just but just suddenly they decided no more fables for anyone outside US.
Yeah.
So
The thing about Anthropic is it's always been about regulatory capture for them. Uh, yes, they have been telling the truth, but they have been telling their version of the truth. So it's always been about regulatory capture for them. Uh, I just listened to the All In pod today morning, and they talked about Anthropic AI as well. Fable is congratulations to them. From what we can see, it's an incredible tool. It's an incredible language model. Uh, there was the previous one, Mythos. I think they didn't want to release it to the public because of some safety measures. But we have to understand at the end of the day that these are just tools, and language models. Yes, they can be great, but they can be even done in Europe and in India as well. So Zoho having this small but significant step just adds to the momentum. And like I always say, momentum is priceless, and the momentum is with Europe and India. This is this
uh,
is the fact of the matter.
absolutely, and as I think as you talked of momentum and priceless. The fact is, I think India, EU, and all the other regions are also working very actively to ensure this momentum is actually converted into business, because that's what it counts. So if you look at the supply side, we're talking of the risk on the demand side. So hence, if we have to make EVs, we have to make semiconductors, we have to actually create new high tech. A lot of that dependency is about whether you have a uninterrupted critical and rare earth process minerals. And while minerals are available, they are at different places. I think processing is really becoming the bottleneck, and that's where we saw just last week the tie-up right from Moscow at SPIEF to Morocco, where the Morocco is saying, come and do something together with us, use our resources, and at the same time also bring our finished goods and use us as a gateway to the EU, because the EU FTA deal will be done. So that's a,
Yeah.
I think, great point. Brazil is saying, come and do a tie-up with us for the Embraer aeroplanes with Mahindra. But in addition, please also come, and they have almost a quarter of the known resources. Come and also tie up, and we will together build uninterrupted flow for the for long term. And similarly, energy is good. Same way, even UAE is saying, and UAE India always have a very strategic relationship. And I think the fact
Right.
that UAE has stepped out of OPEC Plus
Right.
In a way, I see that one of the positives for India can be that considering the great strategic relationship we have, we should also have a long-term predictable supply available, which is a very critical factor. So
Yeah,
great
and
to see all the strategy, all the, as you said, the diplomatic and the government to government engagement actually now flowing into the initiatives.
Right. And when we saw the foreign ministers meeting in Helsinki, in fact, UAE was present over there, and
Yes,
both Finland and India are vying for a seat on the Security Council. And openly, the representative from UAE said, "We will support both of you." Uh, and
correct.
and and you are seeing, yeah, okay. There's the India tie-up with UAE, which is a strong historical strategic partnership, but there is also the European tie-up with the UAE, which is just gaining strength and over again. It is great to see this flywheel of momentum. So on
And I
that,
think, in a way, I see it as that if some of the existing larger powers are forcing others to think of innovative way, then in a way the emergence, every challenge is an opportunity. So I think
every
the
challenge.
current geopolitical and economic challenge is a great opportunity for us to really create the multipolar world, and that's where EU, Finland, India, where and other countries like Brazil, Japan, they come in. So okay, we need to have a multipolar world, we need to have a multiple tie-up, we need to have the Silk Route 2.0, which hops, skips, and jumps any impediments between Japan and India. We'll do it.
True, true. And so on that great positive note, full of momentum, and full of uh, like I would like to say, full of positivity. That's a great place to end this episode. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I think we always want to keep the episodes to a certain time limit of 30 to 40 minutes so that people have time to listen to these. And of course, any other feedback we can get from everybody, we are now available on YouTube, and we will try to publish this podcast as well on Spotify this week. So we'll keep everybody informed.
Great. Always. Thanks so much for hosting. Always a pleasure. And here's to new beginnings on Spotify and others. And look forward to hearing from everyone on what else they would like to listen. So, bye
Great.
the next episode and till many more new developments.
For sure. Looking forward to it. Have a great week,
Absolutely.
everybody.